Hello. Welcome to the World Healing Tour podcast, where our mission is to help you heal yourself so you can heal the world. Hi, my name is Noah Crane. Each week, we will bring you tips and tools and inspire you to live your most empowered and joyful life. I'm also the founder of the 3G Effect, a daily practice to keep you heart-centered in everything you do, with a positive mindset and a positive attitude, by taking 3 important actions. Action number 1, every day remember to have a grateful heart and connect to your gratitude. When you're connected to your gratitude, you're connected to positive feelings and positive emotions, and therefore drawing more positive people, things, and experiences into your life. Element number 2, every day remember to ground in love and compassion. First, love and compassion for yourself. When you're grounded, you grow strong roots in the world. You believe in yourself. You know your worthiness, and you know who you are. You're not easily shaken by other people. When you are in a place of grounded in love and compassion, you're in a place where you're able to remove judgment on yourself. You're able to love yourself, forgive yourself, and fully accept yourself. And therefore, when you're able to do that within yourself, you're able to extend that love and compassion to others. Come on, everybody. We all want more love and compassion. So to have more love and compassion in our lives, we need to put more love and compassion and empathy into the world. And element number 3, every day, know that you are not alone. You are guided. It's a guided journey, and you are guided by God. God, source, higher power, universe, whatever you want to call it, I call it God, is inside you because God created you. It's beside you. It's all around you. Open your heart and soul to God. Learn to trust yourself and trust your journey. We do that by turning off the noise of others and the noise of the outside world. Learn to listen. Be a good listener. God will send you messages and messengers to come into your life just for you to help guide you on this journey. My whole life has changed by doing these 3 things daily. I've been able to find my soulmate and be married to him for over 27 years. I've been able to write my book and my journal, to believe in myself, to do huge events, and to just be here with you today. And that's why I continue saying that the work is healing yourself so you can heal the world, because it all starts with us. And I bring incredible guests to be able to pour into you every week to help you on the journey. And today I'm really excited about 2 incredible guests that I have today, Monica Parker and Brian Robinson. Let's start with Monica Parker. Monica Parker is an award-winning actress, playwright, author, and producer, and so much more. I could be sitting here reading her bio all day, but I want to just have that conversation going for you to get to know this incredible woman. And Brian Robinson is an author, a psychotherapist, a professor of emeritus at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. They have a new podcast that's coming to you soon called How's That Working For You? Don't you guys love that title? I love that. Featuring the Shrink and Smarty Pants. They ask questions such as, how's life working for you? Instead of saying, how's life treating me? They ask, why isn't running into a brick wall working for me? I love those questions, really deep. Brian and Monica, welcome to the World Healing Tour podcast.
Thank you, Noah.
It's great to be here, Noah.
Thank you. It's so awesome to have you both. And I love everything that you've done. I just feel like you're so well-rounded. You're so well accomplished. I mean, just reading your bios was very moving and very inspiring to me. And I'm very grateful that you said yes to being here today. And I'm excited about your new podcast. It sounds really, thought-provoking, and I'm really excited about you bringing your expertise into the world. So I wanted to start by asking you 2 amazing people, so people can get to know you more. How did you find that passion in your life, and how did you connect to bring that together to us?
Are you asking one of us or the
Yeah,
other?
we'll start with you, Monica.
Okay, so you're asking me how I found that passion?
Yes, to
Um,
bring the podcast to the world and how you guys got together.
okay, well, so I met Brian at a resilience conference, which I think we've been doing for many years. And
Yes.
it's sort of like I saw him across a crowded room, only I was actually sitting next to him at a dinner at a very long table, and happenstance put us right next to each other. I looked into those green glasses and those great eyes, and there was this very warm, loving, incredibly kind, and funny person sitting next to me. And funny is the way to my heart, as well as kindness. And we started talking, and we haven't shut up since. And I adore this man. He is smart, he is kind, he is so knowledgeable about in the ways to help people grow and expand and deal with life's troubles. And so somewhere along the line, we looked at each other and said, we should do a podcast. I think it was about as simple as that.
Keep going. Tell everybody how wonderful I am. I love hearing
I'm,
that.
I'm done. I'm done telling
It helps me
people.
with my self-compassion.
So in the podcast, you're considered smarty pants, right?
Yes, Monica's the smarty pants.
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll go over to Brian?
Okay. Yeah, in fairness, so Brian is Dr. Brian Robinson, psychotherapist, amongst many other gifts and talents. And I'm an actress and an author, amongst all the things you've said. But next to therapist, it sounded, oh, I don't know, not exciting enough for me. And so I said to Brian, if we're going to do this podcast, we have to figure out who I am. And who I am is definitely a bit of a big mouth. I admit that.
Yes,
And
I agree.
look, he's nodding. And he's nodding. And yeah, so Smarty Pants came up because it's funny, it's a bit light, and yet it allows me to be me. And that's how this evolved. And
You
Brian always
know,
says,
as a psychotherapist, as we all know, opposites attract. It's not just in marriage, it's in friendships. And Monica and I are opposites. Monica is a bird, I'm a rock. But the truth is, we balance each other out. So she's actually brilliant. She's very whip smart. She's very insightful. Sometimes she tries to undermine my psychotherapy, and so I have to push her back. So but we love each other. We're like two peas in a pod, and we just adore each other. And our husbands don't mind.
I love the two peas in the pods analogy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
chemistry. There's no explaining chemistry. It is what it is. You connect to people in ways that are not on the surface. There's something else, and the something else is what is chemistry, and
Correct.
that's a wonderful, undefinable, but very attractive relationship to have with someone.
I love that. And it almost sounds to me, I don't know if you guys would agree with that, you guys have a soul connection.
Oh, for sure.
Well, I would say so. I've
Definitely.
learned so much from Monica. She keeps me, you know, I've had a serious life and I've had a very serious education and I do a very serious job. Hence the shrink. But when I'm with her, I feel safe, I feel light, I feel love, and I feel like I can be me. I can bring in the other side of me. In fact, my tagline is some people don't know I write murder mysteries.
Yeah, I
Uh,
saw that. That's very cool.
yeah, so I heal by day and I kill by night.
Yeah,
And
can you explain that? I
well,
was
I'm a
reading that.
psychotherapist. I write for Forbes, so I help people with my writing and with the therapy I do. But at night, I kill people in the murder mysteries that I write. In fact, my new murder mystery is coming out in April called Way Dead upon the Swanee River. But I like the balance. I like to be. Monica helps me find the lighter side of me, the humorous side, because she's hilarious.
Mhm.
She's written funny books. She's been on tons of TV shows. She's just a beautiful soul, as you say.
Yeah, that is
Well,
really
thank you. That's
special.
enough for me to last for about 5 years. Thank you.
So how long ago did you meet?
I don't know,
Oh,
5 years.
5 years ago, about
That's
5 years.
That's really beautiful. That's really, really special. And I'm really excited about the podcast and you bringing that wisdom that you both have, that talent, because you're extremely creative people. I mean, no matter how you look at it, you're very creative. You're right. You're here to help people. She acts. She's
Right.
funny. Like there's just so much that you guys bring to the world, and I feel like the world really needs that. So I'm really excited
And the
about you coming together.
and the world brings it back to us. You
Mhm.
know, that old saying, whatever you put out comes back to you.
Yes.
And we've been so rewarded with not only our friendship, but just the fun that we've been able to have together. Doing the podcast is fun. It's not
Mm.
work for us. It's something that we enjoy doing. And by the way, in the podcast, we have celebrities, we have entrepreneurs, we
Newscasters, journalists.
that's right. And just regular everyday people
Right.
who have really gone beat the odds, gone through a lot of hardships. And it's very inspiring how they got through it and how they got to where they are. And Monica.
Oh, and I was just going to add that I think what we've discovered, because the variety of people that we've had on, which really is a huge range of personalities and careers, and that run the gamut, is that underneath it all, everybody has the same core problems, the same needs, the same desires, and often have stumbled along the pathway because life is filled with unseen pebbles and sometimes boulders.
Mhm.
I always remember my mother used to say to me constantly in life, watch out for falling rocks.
Yeah,
And you can't watch out for falling rocks. They just hit you when they hit you. And so, but given that sort of information, I think there's a kind of resilience that comes from knowing that rocks are going to come along the path and that you basically have to deal with them. And everybody in life has issues, has problems, has good times, and then those terrible times. And that's the universality of having this podcast where we listen to the stories of everything and everyone who, I mean, the scope of people are so different. And it's been a really enormous privilege.
and if Smarty Pants will let me get a word in edgewise, I wanted to actually no, I know. I wanted to underscore what actually you're saying in a different way. As a therapist, I have people who come to me and they're very ashamed of whatever it is they're dealing with. I say exactly what Monica says in a slightly different way. Everybody who's listening and watching right now, everybody on this planet, every one of us is struggling or at least dealing with some kind of mental health issue. So we have to normalize mental health because there's such a stigma attached to it, and people are so ashamed when they don't realize that it's like Monica said, you have one thing, I have another, someone else has something else. But you can't get through life without obstacles. It's not what life brings to you, it's what you deal with. I stole John F. Kennedy, President John F. Kennedy's old saying, ask not what life is doing to you, what are you doing with it when it comes? And that really is the foundation of everything, our happiness, our not being a victim of surviving and getting through life in a fulfilling way.
I love that. I love what you're saying, Brian. And I have a son with special needs. He's in the autism spectrum, high functioning. And of course, it's challenging for him because in one way, he really isolates himself. And on the other hand, people also reject him. And it's about like, how can we get people to have more empathy, to have more compassion? And what you said just now really resonated with me about like we're all special needs. Like it doesn't matter who you are. You can go ahead and judge somebody with autism, but the truth is, you have your own challenges. Even being unkind or being angry or being, somebody who's not bringing more positive energy into the world, that's a problem, right? For
Yeah,
people around you. So, I mean, that piece of, seeing that there isn't, nothing's wrong with anybody, right? We're all
that's right.
here on the journey doing our best, trying
That's
to
right.
to get through it, and our job is really to just empower each other and see the beautiful light that each one of us has.
I always say, um, that it's, as I mentioned before, it's not what happens to us, it's
Mm,
what we do with it. And that is, I think, the key. And most of us, we're all like a two-lane highway.
mhm,
Uh, and we spend most of our time in the outside lane, but there's an inside lane. And you mentioned it before when we talk about the soul, the spirit. The inside lane is where we look at how often do we judge? How often do we shame ourselves?
mhm,
And we don't spend enough time there, even if it's 2 minutes a day. It can make a big difference in how we feel about ourselves. There's a lot of research coming out showing that these micro chillers, up to 5 minutes a day, can make a big difference in our well-being and how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah, and I do believe that what you just said, the inside lane creates the outside lane. So
That's right.
whatever we do inside of us really creates our outdoor experience, you know? The people that see the world as beautiful, they're connected to themselves. They're grounded in themselves. They see everything as an opportunity, as a possibility, not as like life or death, right? They're able to see the miracle and even in the challenges.
There's one more point I want to make, and I know I'm talking a lot, and Smarty Pants is going to get mad at me, but I do want people to know that we are hardwired for judgment. Think about it. If we didn't have judgment, we couldn't survive. So Mother Nature hardwired us for judgment. The problem is we can survive with judgment, but if we want to be our best, we have to bring in curiosity. So one of the best tools that I offer folks is when something happens, instead of judging yourself, be curious for a minute because the curiosity gives you what I call a wide angle lens, like a
Mhm.
camera, so that you can see more of what just happened. If you judge yourself, it's myopic. It closes everything down and you only feel bad about yourself. But curiosity does this, and you can say, "Oh, well, that's why that happened," or that's why I snapped at that person because I didn't sleep well last night." And it's easier to forgive yourself and have self-compassion when you bring in curiosity versus judgment. So that's my first tool for today.
I absolutely love that, and I'm doing positive intelligence training. I don't know if you heard about it,
Huh.
PQ.
Oh, yes.
It's
Oh,
life changing, and it's all about moving from negative emotions to in the left side of the brain, being able to move it to the positive emotions, which are on the right side of the brain. And curiosity is one of the 5 stage places that you
yeah.
could be in. So I love curiosity, and I think that that has really changed my life and my
Yeah.
relationship, even with the people closest to me, rather than to put the judgment in. Because our judge is so strong, right? Our judge is so strong. It's just unbelievable.
I feel I always talk about an incident that happened to me, which put such clarity into my life. I I used to live in Los Angeles, and as my actress self, was going to an audition, and I wanted my driveway. My garage was in the back of my house, and it opened on the laneway, and I had to get out to get onto the road to go to where I had to go. So I was leaving in the car, and I turned to the right, and there was a giant phone truck blocking the path, so I couldn't leave that way. So then I turned to the left, and I thought, well, I can go out that way. It's a little longer, doesn't matter. And there was a gardening truck with a gardener pulling down leaves and trees, and he was on a ladder, and he was old, and but so barefoot, basically I was blocked on both sides, and I could feel this rage because I had to be somewhere, and I knew I couldn't move the telephone truck guys. So I looked at the gardener, and I said, you have to move. And he was on top of this pile of leaves, and he's explaining in Mexican, I can't move. Right now I'm and I found myself getting so angry and so frustrated because I had to be somewhere. And the fact that he had a was doing what he was doing was of no concern to me because I had a need. So I honked my horn way too loud, and he tried to explain again, and then I did this terrible thing where I got out of the car and stood there like a crazy woman. And so I could see him coming down, this older man coming off his truck and getting off his ladder and getting into his truck to go away. And I felt this enormous shame. It just swept right over me, and I knew I had been a total jerk and that I didn't know what to do. So I got out of my car to walk towards him, which terrified him because he didn't know what I was going to do. And I could see him backing away. And I walked over to him and I just said, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This was awful of me. And I apologize. And he took me by the hand and he said, it's okay. It's okay. I understand. And I said, yeah, the thing is, it took me a minute or two too long to understand. And it honestly, that moment in my life changed everything. This is several years ago. And I realized that impatience and rudeness and having making yourself feel like you're more important than anyone else is awful, and
Yeah.
that's judgment. And then there's that fix where you
Yeah.
put love into the universe, and that love, that man and I had a hug, and by that time the telephone guys were gone and I got out the other way. But it was a shameful moment for me, and I still think about how badly behaved I was in that moment
And it was,
That's
because
a
and it, go ahead.
That's a
nothing.
great example of how when we're into our own stuff,
Yep.
our own moment, the myopic view, I've got to get there. This is important. I'm stressed. That's a great example of how we're not thinking about what's going on with other people. We hit our horns, we have road rage, we
Mhm.
smack our kids, we hang up on our friends. Here's something that I love to use. And imagine that you're in a restaurant, a really nice restaurant, expensive restaurant. You're paying a lot of money. You're with the person you love, and your server's slinging food on the table and being curt with you. How would you feel? Most people say annoyed or angry. Then the manager comes over and says, this woman's little boy was killed in a car wreck last night, and she's a single mom and has to work. Now,
Mhm.
how do you feel? Something shifts in most of us. Immediately, we feel empathy. Empathy neutralizes anger. I'm going to say that again. When we can imagine that every person, every soul in a car, sitting beside us in church, sitting beside us wherever we go, in a restaurant, is struggling with something. And when we can be sensitive to that, it takes us out of our myopic view and into the bigger picture so that we can, if something goes wrong, we can respond instead of with anger, with love and compassion for that
And
person.
so there's the metaphor for how's that working for you.
Yeah.
It's when it's working for you, it's because you took the moment to actually think and to move into something with grace. And
Yeah.
the opposite is when it doesn't work for you, is you've literally thrown all that out and just reacted like a temper tantrum
Yeah.
child. And how's that working for you? Not so well.
That's right.
Do you
And
guys go ahead?
yeah,
Do you think all this wisdom comes with age too? Because I mean, I
What is
feel
she
like
saying?
that so much wisdom, so much of our wisdom comes with age. Can you hear me?
well, I think it
Yeah.
comes with time and experience and the willingness to be open. For me, I'm older, but actually, I'll tell you what it came with me. It was I was inspired when I was teaching at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. We had 10 Tibetan monks come to perform, and they had beautiful costumes and instruments. And while they were getting ready to go on stage, a group of protesters formed outside the theater. They joined hands, sang Jesus Loves Me, and said that these people worshiped idols and they were of the devil. Now, that upset me that our visitors were treated that way. But guess what the monks did? They stopped the show, they walked outside, they joined hands with the people who were demonizing them, and they sang Jesus Loves Me with them. And
Wow.
the group expanded. That changed my life because I was like that movie when Harry met Sally, when Sally's, you know, acting out a love scene and what the customer says, I want what she's having. I wanted what they have. I don't have it, but it's always been a desire. So that event, and this happens with a lot of people, sobered me and made me realize I've got a lot of work to do on myself. And so I've been on the path ever since.
That is such a beautiful story. I just wanted to say, and Barbara, I mean, Monica. I'm sorry, Monica. I love. I apologize. I love your story too. Because it really touched a chord. Because I know myself when I'm the most stressed or I get the most angry or the most frustrated is when I need to be somewhere, right? So I could so relate to it. And I'm sure the audience is relating to that too, to that story. Such a great story, because stress, you know, when we're really like stuck and we don't really see the whole picture, like you said, like the curiosity, the empathy is not there. And you're like
Yeah.
so like in that tunnel vision of I need to get there and I don't really care who I step on in that one moment. And I love the ending of the story, how you found that love and compassion for each other, and it was such a great teaching moment. I just wanted to say, like, it just really touched me, and I just think it was just such a beautiful expression of a story to move people as well.
You asked a question though, if it comes with age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually think it does come with age. I
Mm-hmm.
think when we're young, we're so busy hurtling from one thing to the next thing, and our lives are full of I don't know, we're throwing things in every direction, and we there's a lot. There's very little downtime. Yeah, I do think when you get older. I also think when you've raised some kids, or you've, in Brian's case, helped people. When you spend some time listening to other people, you start understanding, A, I'm not alone, and B, um, I don't like watching people behave badly. It affects me, it disturbs me. So I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person that other people are going, oh God, look at that car wreck. I, so there's definitely maturity that's one of the gifts of maturity, for
It
sure.
is. But I don't want people to think that you have to be older to be able to do this, because it's not
No, I
true.
agree.
I think maturity and age helps, but there are a lot of younger people who really are looking for themselves. They're searching. As long as you're seeking and searching, that's all it takes, because you have to look inside to find out who you are. And you can do that at any age. Although I will admit, the longer you're on the planet, I think the deeper you can go and the wiser you are. Here are two examples: Smarty Pants and the Shrink.
Yeah, I love that example of yours that you gave too, you know, with them joining in with the hands. Like that's such an image that you just get into your mind, and it's instead of trying to fight and resist, which we do so much in
Yeah.
life, we just acknowledge, right? We acknowledge and we see the light in
Well,
something else.
you
Yeah.
know what? You're bringing up another good point that I want to piggyback on, and that is, most of us set our own limitations because we fight. And I want you to think about this for a minute. If you're in a riptide, the worst thing you can do is fight, because it will kill you. It will drown you. I've been in one. It's terrifying. The last thing you want to do is just let go. But that's what you have to do to survive. If you fight, it will take you under. If you float, it will and go parallel to the shore, it'll bring you in. That's physics, and the same is true of us as people. If I you know, well, let's say, I'm reluctant to say this because I'm not a woman, obviously, and I've never had a baby. Monica has. But we know that natural childbirth, people who take these classes, whenever you don't resist the pain and you relax into it, you have fewer obstetrical problems and less pain. That's a scientific fact. I've read the studies. There are other examples when, if I'm on a motorcycle on the back, I'm going to lean into the curve, even though my brain tells me to lean out. Uh, but what most of us do in our lives is we're fighting the fire department when our house is on fire, because we won't stick our neck out. We judge ourselves. We put ourselves down. We get caught up, as Monica said, in our own point of view without considering the bigger picture. And so we put limitations on ourselves in ways we're not even aware of. That's why that inside lane and becoming more insightful about who's, you know, I'm not a passenger in this ship, this body. I'm not a passenger. I'm the captain of this ship. Monica is the conductor of her symphony. Noah, you are the coach of your team. We're not passive passengers, although we often act that way. And the goal is for all of us to find our center and live from that place, and it changes everything.
Yeah, and that's one thing I keep telling my kids. Like the only person they can change, the only person you can change is yourself. You can't change anybody else. So if every person in this world was just responsible for how they show up in the world, what a
Right.
beautiful world it would be.
I've
That's exactly
learned
right.
the hard way that being an overreactor, when you raise kids and they're in your face or they're just, challenging. Um, my tendency originally would have been to overreact, which did nothing except turn this small thing into a large thing. It's
Mhm.
like taking a small explosive and a hand grenade and turning it into a nuclear bomb. And it has taken me years to turn that switch off. And when bad things come my way or when I'm being challenged by someone that I don't like, whether it's the person I don't like or whether it's what they're challenging me with, to just sit in it for a minute and just listen and try and see if there's some truth to this. And there's usually some truth, and own it. And it's absolutely changed the relationship I have with my son and my daughter-in-law, because I no longer push back. I listen and I nod, and I I like to say that I sit in the audience.
Mm. I love
I
that
don't
so
want.
much. There is so much power in listening, right? So much power. And, my coach says with the PQ training that I'm doing that when we're talking, you never say, like, how will say somebody, oh, well, you're wrong about this. This is not true. So instead of saying that, somebody's always 10% right. So always, when you speak to someone, see them at least as 10% right. Never make them completely wrong, because that just does not create connection. And I love that you said that you're able with your kids and your daughter-in-law, and you're able to find that connection. And I think it's all, I've been able to do it with my own daughter, my 18-year-old daughter who just turned 18. We had so much conflict and struggle with each other, and when I changed myself, our relationship completely changed. And we're like, so I see her in a completely different light, and I so focused on just on the positive things she's doing. But before, it was harder for me to see that because I was so caught on what was not going right. And when I took myself out of that, I'm able to really find that amazing connection that I've always wanted with my daughter. So it's always the work within us that we do that helps change the relationship with other people. So I love that you brought that in.
Yeah, there's an old saying, if you want to change someone else, you got to change yourself first.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
that really works. The Buddha talked about the arrows of life. And he said there's the first arrow is not what causes our suffering. It's the second arrow that we react to. I
Uh,
use the word zinger. So it's not what happens to me, it's what I do with it. And like you were saying, Smarty Pants, if you react, it's like feeding fire, fueling a fire, and something is going to come back to you. If you can stop, and this is not easy. I don't want anybody to think it's easy because it isn't. But in the heat of the moment, if you can act from your center instead of react, it will change how other people respond back to you. There's a psychologist named Viktor Frankl who said between the stimulus and the response, that means whatever happens and your response to it, there's a space. And that's most of us run roughshod over the space. In that space, you and I have a choice. And when I make a choice, I'm free and I'm empowered. The key is to remember to pause and remember there is a space there where you can choose how you want to respond. That empowers you and frees you from everything.
Yeah, I love the space, Brian, right? Because I agree with you.
Right.
That's so important. And wouldn't you say that space that you're talking about is being present and aware?
It is. That's
Mhm.
exactly what it is. But we can get thrown out of that when something really traumatic happens or somebody really hurts our feelings. I mean, we're wired for that. We're wired to respond to threats, and so our defenses come up. But it takes practice to realize if it's a fire, if someone has a gun, if it's a mass shooting, yes, I want to have the threat, I want to have the defense. But if it's someone I love, my spouse, my friend, then I want to be able to work through that so I don't have to react as if it's dangerous when it really isn't.
Yes, and one of the problems that I do see today, and I think also with myself when my kids were younger, I feel like I wasn't as present as I needed to be. I felt like at times, technology was just a way to like, here, do this, because mom needs to do this, And you see so many families, even when you go out and you're sitting somewhere, so many people are disconnected. They're in their phone, and I feel like there's just so many distractions, and it's being able to be more present is really the gift in the world. If we could be more present for people, that's really what they need from us. They need that emotional support, that presence, that awareness that we're here for them. And I think that is such an important thing for every parent to realize.
This is an addiction.
Mhm.
And this is a huge addiction. And I see it with moms pushing their kids in strollers and they're on the phone and the kid is asking or saying, Mom, 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 Mom. And they're babies in strollers. And the mothers are on the phone or the fathers are on the phone. And this is not producing a healthy relationship. It just isn't. And that addiction, I don't know what we have to do to stop it. Awareness helps. I mean, by getting that it is an addiction, maybe then we can say, okay, we're stopping this. This is crazy. We can't do this.
What
Um,
help? Well, what I was going to say, what you're right, and it takes you out of the present moment when
yep,
you got three things, and usually the image I would add to that is there's usually a dog on a leash running with the and the phone and the baby. It's our society for a lot of people is overdoing it. Just the more I do, the better I feel, the better I am. I mean,
that's
that's
true.
not really true, but sometimes we feel that way. But it's going back to being in the present moment, and it takes in 1 minute I can be in the present moment. If I were that person walking with the carriage, I would be listening to the wind or looking at the trees or the flowers, hopefully, or the blue sky or the snow, whatever it is. Even if it's just for 1 minute, it lowers your blood pressure, it calms you down, it helps you be in the present moment where life is really happening, not in the future and not in the past. That's that's a big healing that we all need to work at, is being more in the present.
And our busy, busy, busy self-made busy lives are
Yeah.
often the thing that keep relationships at bay. Instead of keeping them in, we're pushing them away and we're not recognizing, oh my God, we're missing an opportunity. This opportunity is right here, especially with little kids. And they're saying, I need something, I need something. And you say, I'm on the phone, I'm on the phone. You're blowing it. I mean, it's as simple as that. My son always says he's the last generation who came up before there were cell phones. And he always says he's so grateful because he had our attention.
No, me too. I didn't grow up with cell phones either. Our generation didn't grow up with the cell phone. And I do think that, using cell phone responsibly, and not also giving the kids, they might want a cell phone at a young age, but not giving it to them. They don't need it at a young age. Like they need you. They don't need to hold the device in their hand. So I just think, the really being responsible with how we use technology to empower our lives, but not to disconnect us from other people.
Also, boredom sometimes is productive.
Oh, yeah.
And we've forgotten that, or lots of people have forgotten that, or don't even know that in the space of nothingness comes your brain activity and comes ideas and creativity. And
Mm-hmm.
for all of us who grew up before there were cell phones, I mean, I know what that feels like to sit still in and think I'm bored and discover that I'm actually not bored. I just haven't actually tapped into the space that I'm in right now. And wow, there's so much that can be discovered.
Yeah.
That is so true. That is so true. When we take so much for advantage, we were doing one episode of this podcast, and the guy stood up. I can't tell you what he said, but he stood up and he turned off the light and turned it back on, and he said, "The world is an amazing place."
He
Think
jumped
about
up
that.
out of the chair
Yes.
and he said, I want to show you something. I want to show you
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And
And it's like, yeah, look around. We take so much for granted of what we have. And this goes back to Noah, what you were saying about gratitude. We have so much to be grateful for, all of us. Even if we have sadness in our lives right now, there's so much around us. Something as simple as electricity that a lot of people don't have in some countries. Food on our table. Where I live, I have a glorious view of the mountains with the sun setting over it. We have so much to enjoy. So it's hard to think you could get bored if you really stop. I think the boredom is we don't have what we typically have. We don't have our cell phone. We don't have our devices. But if younger kids could just realize what we're talking about and look around in the present moment, it's healing. It's enriching. It's incredible.
Yeah, there's so much to be grateful for, like you said. And I think what really keeps people disconnected from themselves, I don't know if you see it this way, but what I think it is a lot of trauma. A lot of people experience a lot of trauma in their life. I'm sure you see it a lot as a psychotherapist.
Oh yeah,
And I think that blocks them a lot from being present and really
right.
connected to the present moment and aware of what they want in their lives.
Yeah. The blocking is the defenses or we call them parts in therapy that come in to protect us. So let's say I have a dog when I'm 5 years old and it ravages me and traumatizes me. And as an adult, you bring your young, beautiful, gentle dog in and I freak out.
Mhm.
I'm not freaking out because of your dog. I'm freaking out because of my experience. And so that freak out is a defense so that I don't get mauled again by another dog. Now, this is not about dogs, but we're all wired the same way to react to things that traumatized us when we were younger, or at least hurt us or wounded us. We tend to re-experience that wound as we're adults. And in our intimate relationships, it shows up as well.
Yeah,
The
it's a
thing that wounded me will show up in any kind of intimate relationship with that person.
Yeah, that dog thing really resonated with me because I was in the dog park with my dog, and there's a mom there sitting on a bench with her son, who was about, I think he was probably 4 years old, and he's screaming like he wanted to leave the dog park. He was so terrified. And my son, who's high functioning autism, kept coming up to her and telling her, "Why are you here? Like if your son is freaking out by the dogs." Because every time a dog would come near him, he would start screaming. She's like, "Well, I'm trying to get him. He got bit by a dog once, and I'm trying to get him to not be afraid of dogs." You know,
Wow.
and my son's like, "Well, take him out because he
Yeah.
can't. This is not good. He's really scared." And that made me think of that when you were talking about that.
All
And
that re-traumatizing. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I thought too. And my son even noticed that. And he was telling the mom, take the kid out of the dog park. He was realizing that the kid's being traumatized. But sometimes we do things as parents, not realizing that we are not helping the child. We're actually re traumatizing the child.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, so that was a very interesting observation when I was there. And when you talked about the dog, that kind of brought back that memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you have so many like interesting things that you talk about. I wanted to ask you just to tell us a little bit more about yourselves and the podcast and what people can expect.
Well, I was going to mention one of our guests invented the game Balderdash, and she talks about how we have separated ourselves or isolated ourselves, and how games uh, like when you sit around with your family or with friends and play games, it brings you together in a whole different way. It's different
Mhm.
from playing the game on the computer, but it connects you with people. And so the isolation has disconnected us, but games are so much more than what they seem on the surface. They have a lot to offer. So she goes into that whole idea about how they can be healing and help us connect with each other.
Sure, there's a famous picture of all these young teenagers sitting on a couch, and they're all next to each other, but each one of them is on the phone.
Mhm.
Ah,
And you look at that picture and you go, what is wrong with this picture?
yeah, yeah,
Everything.
yeah.
And because they're not talking to each other,
Mm.
they're talking, even though they're all together. And definitely, I think board games, I think any hiking, any activity where you pull people to get picnics, remember those?
Mhm.
Where you actually get together and you go out of your way to do something nice, bring nice food, do good things, and go to the trouble of gathering a group of people, and shared activity with friends, family is holistic. It is healing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. When you're talking about those people sitting together in a room, literally my daughter and her friends as teenagers, maybe like 2, 3 years ago, would sit in the room texting each other. They're together in one room, but they're not talking to each other. They're texting each other on their phones. I'm like, this is just crazy, you know?
It's a
Well,
habit.
Yeah.
That's just
I
an addiction.
I have worked with a couple who were not getting along, and they would be in bed at night and they couldn't talk, so they would text each other, sitting side by side in their bed. Um, it was the most incredible non-communicative relationship I've ever seen. Yeah, so it happens with all kinds of people.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I also do agree about the fact that I think every generation will always look at the other generation and think like they're screwed up, you know? We always look at the other
For
generation.
sure.
There's some really great things about this generation. Like they're smart, okay? Like instead of like going food shopping, my daughter orders everything on DoorDash, she's saving time, So they do some really smart things. If they use the technology correctly, they get food delivered to them easily, they're very resourceful, this generation. Let's put it this way, very resourceful. And I think that's something that I admire about them. But I agree,
I
technology
I
has created this connection. Yes.
Okay, but I have to throw this in. I don't understand the DoorDash thing anyway, because they're spending money.
Mhm.
They may have the money because they do at this time, or if they've got good jobs or whatever, but I don't understand it. Why aren't they actually cooking something at home? I mean, that's also healthy to learn how to do that. It's important.
Yeah, she
And
does.
And
I find pushing buttons are so easy for them, having other people do the work. And I get it. I mean, they're busy. They're busier than I was when I was. My son is busy, and my daughter-in-law, they're busy people. The word busy has become some kind of accolade that never existed before. Brian, do you agree?
well, yeah, it romanticizes what we're doing. A lot of people think that's cool to be working. Well, it's called the hustle culture, to be working, doing three or four things at once. It does get your adrenaline up. It's addictive to be able to do that, and then to challenge yourself to see if you can accomplish it. I want to go back though to our podcast and talk about some of the other topics, and one of which is self-compassion. We have one of the leading authorities who wrote the book Self-Compassion, Dr. Kristen Neff, and she talks about self-compassion. And it's a great episode. I don't know when. We've done 10 episodes, but I've really encouraged people to listen in. One of the things about self-compassion, it's not just a nice idea. It's not just a soft term. It is a skill and a tool.
For sure.
One of the things that we have just found out is that people who have self-compassion versus those who don't have fewer cardiovascular problems. Now, I've read the study. It's so scientific, it's not easy to read. But here's what they did. They actually went in and measured the linings of the blood vessels of all these people. And they found people who practiced self-compassion had cleaner arteries, less plaque, uh, versus the people who did not. That tells you and there are other studies like this, but that tells you there is a direct line between the mind and the body. So the way I treat myself has implications for my health, physical health, and for my longevity. We know that people who are optimistic, people who meditate, people who have self-compassion have fewer health problems and they live longer. It's a fact, and the data is coming out all the time that we can look at. So that's a great.
It's a great
episode.
episode, but what's really fascinating about that is how misconceived self compassion
Yes,
has been and can be,
right.
including from myself, as though it was a dirty word, like taking the time out to care for yourself instead of scrubbing harder or writing more or doing what we
How
do.
selfish of you, Monica, to have
It-
self-compassion. How selfish.
One less
You know,
bubble bath for me.
yeah, right. It's more than a bubble bath. I mean,
It's way
people,
more than a bubble bath.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
about taking time out to actually literally smell the roses, for a
right.
metaphor, if there's no other kind. And we forget sometimes to do that because we're busy, busy, busy. And
Yeah,
so self compassion, as you say, cleans the arteries, reminds us to stop
yeah.
and just breathe it all in and enjoy each other and enjoy whatever is out there. And
That
yeah,
moment. We also have Alison Camerata, who is a CNN journalist. She's speaking about self-care, which is related to self-compassion. But again, one of the things she says is self-care is so much more than a bubble bath, and it's really about the more I take care of me, the more energy I'll have to take care of someone else. It's like that metaphor of the oxygen mask deploying on an airplane. You put it on yourself first, not the child or the disabled person. And when you do that, you have more to give. So it's not selfish, it's not egocentric, and it's not narcissistic. So we got to stop, we got to change those old ways of thinking. That's what our podcast does. It helps people look at themselves and life in a different way, in a healing way, in a more positive way. And it fits with more of the science. You know, we used to say curiosity kills the cat. No, curiosity gives life to the cat. It's and we used to
makes
say,
more kittens.
yeah, absolutely. Good point. Good point. So we're trying to get rid of some of the old myths that no longer apply and stay with the science and have people on who know this stuff and who are living it and who are overcoming obstacles and challenges daily in their lives.
Yeah,
Mon-
the science really resonates with a lot of people, especially if they're very analytical. They want to know the science behind things. So I think it's really important to have that component when you speak about different subjects.
oh yeah.
And I believe, you know, self-compassion and self-love are really key. And I'm really blessed. I'm married for over 27 years to my soulmate, who is just an incredible human being. Just very happy, positive. He dances through life.
Ah,
He's just an awesome, awesome human being. I actually told him, I'm like, I wanted to bring you on the podcast here so we could like be the four of us talking because you guys would love him. He's a dentist, um,
ah.
very
Does he
intelligent.
dance while he's filling teeth?
Yes, he does. He's just really a fun, outgoing person and just like the
That's
most
great.
beautiful person to be married to. And
Yeah.
I have to say that my life is so beautiful because of the choice that I made in my life to bring such a incredible person into my life because I had a lot of trauma. I had a lot of negative things and most people in my position would not be able to choose such an incredible person. But because I did the self work on myself, I was able to realize what's really important and what I wanted. And I took my power back when I chose the mate. Instead of letting him choose me, I chose who I wanted. And I think part of life is choosing yourself and not letting
That's
other people choose for you.
That makes you the captain of your ship.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that made a huge difference for me and really shifted everything because when you have a good support partner in life, I really believe it's the most important decision we ever make is who we decide to bring into our lives, whether it's a friend or whether it's a partner. It really does shape how we my success, who I am, how and I've learned so much from him, right? So he's been like one of my biggest teachers also because of the
Mm.
way he was, because I was more serious, I was more stiff, you know, and he just was just fun all the time. So to be around somebody
So,
fun
so
really
you were the
shifts
rock,
everything.
you were
Yeah.
the rock, and he was the bird.
Yes,
He
definitely.
is, yeah, that's you see, that's how it works. It can be conflictual, but it doesn't have to be. You can uh help each other balance out and meet each other in the middle. That's what Monica and I do.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And actually, when I was 14 years old, I'll just tell you this really quick story. I made a decision, even though I had a really hard childhood and I had a very abusive stepfather. I literally made a conscious decision when I was 14 that I was going to have an incredible life. And I literally, boom, put it into my future as a possibility. And I remembered that promise that I made to myself when I was like 29 years old. And I said, I have to keep that promise to that girl that she made, you know? And
Oh, yeah.
that was life changing because, you know, we created, and I literally created that at 14 without even realizing that I was creating that I was going to have an amazing life just by the choice that I made by who I decided to bring into my life.
We all have that little child inside of us that never goes
Yeah.
away. And a lot of people don't even realize it's there, but it
Mhm.
is. And I think all of us have a responsibility to make sure that child, that kid, that little boy or little girl gets what they didn't get when they were growing up. Because once we're grown, we have the resources and the knowledge to make that happen in a loving, compassionate way. So the key is to, we have them, they don't have us, but we hold them with love and compassion like you would hold a newborn.
Yeah, and you know, the really interesting thing is that I realized that as a child, I didn't have a choice, right? My parents were my parents, my stepdad was
Yeah,
my stepdad, but as an adult, I got to choose. So that really
there you go.
excited me about life is that as an adult, I'll be choosing. I'm going to create my life the way I want it to. And we can all do that, right?
I
So you
definitely.
have two children?
I
No,
have three kids.
no, you have four.
I have
You
four.
have,
My husband's not a kid.
no,
He's so self-sufficient. He's
no,
like,
no, I'm talking
He
about the
needs
little
yourself.
Monica. I mean, the little Noah.
oh, the little Noah, yeah, my inner child, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of inner child work lately. I think I have my picture, my baby picture here with me, and I've been just
Oh,
looking at the picture and connecting to my essence. And
oh,
it's just, you know, life is just a journey. We keep stepping into who we're meant to be, and it's a beautiful thing. And I'm so excited for your podcast. I'm so excited for what you're bringing to the world. You're two just beautiful, incredible people. I love the chemistry between you, the energy. So I want to end by asking you, how can people connect with you, find you, you know, and learn more about everything that you do, and also, you know, be able to listen to your podcast?
Starting on June 28th, we will be on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, but Spotify for sure. And we would love you to find us. How's that working for you? And we would love to have you come and join us. That's the first part. The second part,
I think, isn't
we,
it March 28th?
what did I say?
June 28th.
I don't know where I am. You're
It's
right. It's
March
March
28th.
28th.
Yes.
Whoa.
Uh,
I just time traveled. That was
yeah,
interesting.
that's okay.
March 28th is what I really meant to say. That's
Yeah.
anyway, yes, March 28th. Please find us on YouTube and on Spotify and any other place you get your podcasts. But besides that, you can probably find us on our websites. We both have them. Brian's is under his name. Mine is under my name, Dr. Brian Robinson or Brian Robinson.
It's Brian with a Y, RobinsonPhD.com. That's my website. It's BrianRobinsonPhD.com.
I don't have any letters after mine. It's just monicaparker.com. I no, actually it's I am monicaparker.com.
That's because you're smarty pants, but you're still smart. I wanted to say that on our websites, you can also see all of our podcasts. And so if you miss the first few, they'll be on there. And so you can see them all. And they're a total of 10. And as Monica said, they start March 28th and run through May 30th. Uh, and they're great. We're so excited about them. We can't wait to share them with everybody.
Well, congratulations again. I feel truly honored that I got to meet both of you. And I look forward to listening to your podcast and staying connected.
We
Correct.
thank you so much for having us. This has been really fun and really delightful, and I wish you all the best with everything that you do.
Thank you so much. I so
Same
appreciate that.
here.
Noah,
To
Th-
you, Noah, and to all the listeners and the viewers, we
yes.
thank all of you for supporting us and follow us on our socials and check out our websites.
My
Awesome.
website goes live on Monday, just to be clear.
Oh,
Um,
good.
Well, thank you so much. Truly an
thank
honor. Have
you.
a beautiful day.
You
Thanks.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me today on our World Healing Tour podcast. Until next time, remember to practice the 3 elements. Have a grateful heart, ground in love and compassion, and know every day that you are not alone. You are guided by God. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Namaste.